I agreed to an open marriage after my wife cheated and let her sleep around for 10 years. But when I fell in love with a coworker, my ex lost her mind, trying to destroy everything. I'm 47, my wife Lisa is 42. We've been married for 17 years, but in reality, we only lived as a couple for about 7 of them. 10 years ago, I caught Lisa cheating. She admitted she had fallen out of love with me and wanted an open marriage, and so we had 2 kids at the time. Our eldest was still a toddler, and our youngest was a newborn. It was devastating for me. Lisa said that back-to-back pregnancies had taken a huge toll on her emotionally and physically, and that she needed to refresh herself. Unfortunately, her way of doing that involved sleeping with random men. Divorce at the time was too complicated. With 2 small kids and my modest income, I decided to let her do what she wanted. I moved upstairs in our duplex, and we continued co-parenting. That sounds easier than it was. Our split was messy and full of resentment, mostly from me because she cheated. But over time, we both threw ourselves into work and parenting, and I slowly came to terms with it. A few months ago, I met Katie, a 35-year-old coworker. We clicked instantly. Our connection started off purely friendly, like 2 people who really understood each other. We began hanging out outside of work, still just as friends. It wasn't until last month that we kissed for the first time, and I realized how special she was to me. Since then, she stayed over at my place a few times, and apparently that's been bothering Lisa. Technically, Lisa is still my wife. We never finalized the divorce. But she's been acting strange, especially when Katie's around. She acts like she's still my wife and has authority over my life. I had to remind her that we're not together and that I can do what I want, just like she did for all those years. It's hard to describe her behavior, but I'll give you a few examples. One evening, Katie and I were having dinner in the kitchen when Lisa walked in and said, "Mind if I join you?" Katie and I exchanged confused glances. Lisa didn't wait for a response. She just sat down with her plate. We sat there in awkward silence, smiling like strangers. The atmosphere was tense, and the dinner was basically ruined. But I tried to give Lisa the benefit of the doubt, thinking maybe she was just trying to be civil. Another time, Katie and I were watching a movie upstairs when Lisa barged in and demanded I come with her. I asked what was going on, and she said, "Your son needs you. He has a science project to finish, and you need to help him." That surprised me because we'd already divided responsibilities. I helped the older one, she helps the younger. I told her I'd done my part, and this was hers. She blew up and yelled, "Isn't he your kid too? Instead of helping him, you're just being lazy. You're so irresponsible." It turned into a shouting match. Katie felt extremely uncomfortable, apologized, and left. Later, she told me she wouldn't come to my house anymore, though we continued seeing each other at her place. But why should I sacrifice my life when I never interfered with Lisa's? She brought home whoever she wanted, and I stayed out of it. Now that I've found someone who actually makes me happy, Lisa is suddenly acting like a jealous wife and doing everything she can to sabotage my relationship. I confronted her about it recently, and she claimed she didn't care about me being with Katie. She refused to admit she was interfering and said I was imagining things. So I told her, "If you keep crossing lines like this, I'm seriously going to consider filing for divorce." She teared up and said she didn't mean to interfere. She was just worried about our son and had been swamped at work, so she asked for help. I told her this wasn't a cry for help. It was blatant manipulation. Later, she called Katie, apologized, and invited her to come over again. Katie accepted the apology, but made her boundaries clear. She prefers we continue seeing each other at her place. Now I'm stuck. I want to be done with Lisa, but I'm scared she'll ruin my relationship with Katie. Lately, I've been seriously considering divorce. The only reason I didn't go through with it earlier was because I didn't want to put the kids in a position where they'd have to choose between us. But now I'm wondering if it's time to finally close this chapter and start putting myself first, even if that means putting myself above the kids for once. Or should I just wait a few more years until they're older? The thing is, I don't know if Katie is willing to wait that long for me. God, I'm still so angry at Lisa for ever suggesting an open marriage in the first place. But honestly, I'm even angrier at myself for agreeing to it and not standing my ground when I should have. Edit. I realize now my original post lacked important context, especially about Lisa's affair and our breakup. A lot of people said it's hard to give advice without that, so here's the full story. This happened 10 years ago, so I might be missing a few details. About 4 months after our younger son was born, Lisa started acting strange. She wouldn't let me touch her, saying she wasn't ready for intimacy. She claimed pregnancy and breastfeeding had completely killed her desire. I respected that, of course, but I also felt her growing emotionally distant. I suggested we see a marriage counselor, but she brushed it off, saying it was just postnatal hormones and things would settle down with time. Almost a year went by, and I lost patience. I told her we couldn't just ignore the problem. I said she either needed to come to therapy with me or be honest about what was really going on. She turned it around on me, accusing me of being selfish and insensitive, but I didn't let her gaslight me. I was determined to get to the truth. I checked her phone but found nothing suspicious. She had deleted nearly all messages and emails. One day, she told me she was going shopping with her girlfriends. I followed her car. I caught her cheating. She was hooking up with some young college kid. I didn't break into his place, I knocked. Some shirtless guy opened the door, and Lisa was sitting on the couch in nothing but her underwear, trying to cover herself. I grabbed the guy by the neck and nearly punched him, but Lisa jumped in crying and begged me not to hurt him. She kept saying it wasn't his fault, that he was just one of her flings. One of them, that crushed me. She admitted she'd been with several men. The guy didn't even know she was married or had kids. We went back home and I did what I thought any man would do in that situation. No, I didn't hit her. I called her parents and told them the whole truth. I told her I wanted a divorce. I even hired a lawyer and discussed everything with him. But when the attorney laid it all out for me, I realized I'd lose everything. Our kids were still so young. They needed their mother. I could have gotten joint custody, but that would mean depending on Lisa just to see them, and she'd be able to set the terms. Sure, I could go to court if she broke any agreements, but who wants to spend their life fighting in court? We live in a no-fault divorce state, so I'd have to pay her alimony no matter what, and child support would be separate from that. Basically, all I'd get out of a divorce was total dependence on Lisa when it came to seeing my kids. Lisa didn't want a divorce either. Instead, she proposed an open marriage, saying maybe one day we'd find our way back to each other. I knew I'd never go back to her, but I couldn't afford the divorce. The only practical solution was to move into separate parts of the house and co-parent as neighbors. And that's what we did. Lisa could call it an open marriage or whatever she wanted, but for me, that was the end. We've been living separately for 10 years now. Lisa had a lot of lovers. She claimed none of them were serious, but I know for sure there were at least 3 she was clearly more involved with. Guys who stayed at our house, went hiking with her, even took vacations with her. It wasn't easy for me to watch her bring a parade of men into our home, especially knowing she was sleeping with them in our bedroom. We live in a duplex. I took the guest room upstairs, which has a separate entrance via a back stairway. We bought the house from an Asian family who had built it, so their adult son could live independently upstairs. But he eventually moved out, and they sold the place. The main floor has a front entrance that leads to a living room, then a large kitchen and dining area, a master bedroom, and a storage room we turned into a nursery. Upstairs is a guest bedroom, a large library, and a terrace. So from my spot upstairs, I could see and hear most of what went on downstairs. There were times I wanted to shut it all out, but I stayed alert for the sake of the kids. At first, I also tried dating different women, but after a couple of months, it all started to feel empty and meaningless, so I gave it up. Instead, I focused on more fulfilling things. I joined a badminton club and got back into fitness. I used to be active in track and field during college, so I went back to that. I also joined a hiking group that organizes solo treks every 2 months. The rule was that you couldn't bring a partner, friends, or anyone you knew. You went completely alone, but among other solo travelers. It was amazing. I went hiking every other month for 2 years straight. Now I go twice a year. Over the past 10 years, I've had the occasional hookup, but no emotional connection, no serious relationships. I didn't feel a real bond with anyone until I met Katie. With her, everything is different. Being with her makes me happy in a way I haven't felt in years. She's the kind of woman who makes me believe in love again. But of course, the devil, in the form of Lisa, just can't leave me alone. So here's the situation. Katie refuses to come to my house anymore. I'm afraid she'll pull away from me completely and I don't want to lose her. Now I feel like I'm being forced to choose, Katie or my kids. And I honestly don't know what to do.